Hi, this is Carrie, and welcome to Tandem Talks, a podcast meant to empower you to live your life your way.
And I'm Craig. Join us as we go deeper with entrepreneurs and their journey creating success in business and life. Hello, all, and welcome to Tandem Talks here with Craig and Carrie. And we are here with a very special friend of ours, all the way over from the East Coast, actually, Dr. AI. And thank you for being with us today. She has an extraordinarily special background, so I have to look at my notes to keep all this straight. But it's very dynamic, and I know that if you're listening today, you're going to get a ton of value. So her background, just to list it really quickly, she has actually dual degrees from the University of Colorado and China AgU in communication. She has a master's from the University of Syracuse. And she also has 2 doctorates from the University of Maryland, both in philosophy and public relations, where she was a professor for quite a while. But she eventually decided to leave all that, really leave academia and become an entrepreneur, become a business owner. And she has founded a beautiful, I wouldn't even just say organization, but I would say more of a movement, right? And that's called Classroom Without Walls. She's been running that for 4 years. I know they're having tremendous success. In addition to that, she's done all kinds of other cool stuff. She has great certifications. I'm not going to list them all out because we'll be here all day. Obviously, she's well accomplished in that arena. But she's also done some really amazing volunteer work with the PR Society of America, the International Communication Association, and most recently in 2020, some volunteer work with the University of Harvard. So we're really appreciative for you to be on today. Thank you so much. I think one of the things we'd love to hear from you most is obviously anything you want to share, but in particular, why? Why did you make that leap? You obviously had a good lifestyle. We know you have a young family at home. Being a professor is great. You get a good lifestyle in a lot of ways. Why leave all that to start over and become an entrepreneur, and maybe just cast any other vision or anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah, totally. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show, Karen and Greg. And I'm a fan of both of you. So really honored to be here. And so in terms of my journey, I'm actually a first generation immigrant to the United States. And I grew up in China. But I hated Chinese education. It was really based on memorization, exam, and public humiliation. So I guess at the time that really planted a seed in me in terms of pursuing this career in education, because if you hate it enough, you want to do something about it. So that really inspired me. And after my K-12 experience, and to come here to the United States to see how other people are actually learning in a different country. So that's where I went to Syracuse, University of Maryland, got my degrees. And a few years into my teaching career, and I started to notice, wow, the US education system also has its own problems, its own challenges. I started to see parallels between what I experienced in China and what I was experiencing in the United States. So I actually taught in the classroom for 15 plus years. And about when I hit mid-age crisis, and I really started to ask myself some really profound questions. And what am I doing? And I feel like 70% of what I did was to perpetuate the broken education model. I supposed to serve our students. And so the questions I asked myself, do I want to continue to be a part of the system? Or do I want to be outside the system and to be the solution as opposed to be a part of the problem? Yeah, I guess mid-age crisis, at the same time, I was taking a sabbatical. So sometimes it can be so powerful in life when you have that pause. So that was the first time my life was not running on autopilot. And I was able to reflect on some very deep questions. Who am I? What do I want to do in life as a result of that sabbatical? So I decided to leave everything behind and to start my own model, to start building a different model outside the existing institution. And even before I resigned, I actually discovered, to borrow this quote, the master's tools cannot dismantle the master's house. So what I discovered was that when I was trying to make changes within the system, it is very, very hard. It is a lot easier to dismantle the system from the outside, being a new voice, and to start a movement that way. So that's kind of what really inspired me, and to make this crazy decision, which I didn't even share with my parents for quite a few years, because it's such a great feeling, right? Oh, my daughter is a college professor, and it's a very comfortable lifestyle. You have summer off, you have like winter off, you work half of the year, you teach the same class, all those things. But I'm so happy that I made that decision to do what I do today. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. And also thanks for having the courage, which I'd like to unpack that a little bit. But maybe before, can you tell us a little bit about the new project, Classroom Without Walls, and like what does that look like, and sort of, why that direction?
Yeah. So Classroom Without Walls is really built based on the broken education model. So our tagline is, we teach you what schools are not teaching you to be career ready and future ready. For example, we all know, both of you are very successful entrepreneurs. I'm a business owner, entrepreneur myself. We all know how important it is to innovate, creativity, all those things are very important. But so much research has shown that, for example, creativity actually decreases as children become more educated. There's a very famous study conducted by NASA. So they asked children 4 years old and 5 years old, hey, guys, how many ways can you think of using a paper clip? So the 4 years old, 5 years old, like you have young children, they're so creative, they're so imaginative. So they generated hundreds of ideas. They scored 98% in terms of divergent thinking, in terms of creativity. 5 years later, the same group of children, their creativity dropped to 50%, 50. Another 5 years later, the number dropped to 2%. From 98% to 2% by the time they become professionals, graduating from college, you ask yourself, what happened? So what happened is that they become more educated, right? That's crazy. And even innovation, there was a big global study, and they discovered innovation is actually inversely related to GPA. The higher the GPA, the less likely a kid is to innovate. So based on, I can go on and on with studies like that, they really poke holes at the traditional educational system. So because of that, at my school, we work with our kids through different projects to really develop their innovation, their creativity. And most students, after they are being in the formal education for a few years, they seek permission for everything because they're used to, hey, teacher, can I do this? Can I use the bathroom? Right? Simple examples. And should I put the numbers here? This and so after doing that for, 10 plus years, and they have built lots of self-limiting beliefs, and they seek permission for everything. And many students are also very they tend to be perfectionists. They don't want to take risks. They're so afraid of failures and mistakes. I recently had a conversation with one of my friends. She's a teacher in high school in the United States. She told me that her students refused to write down any answers if they are using a pencil without the eraser on the top. That's how afraid they are of losing a point. And so so because of that, another thing that we supplement at Classroom Without Walls is to really work on their mindset and to another element is emotional intelligence, regulating their own emotions and managing their emotion with others. And another big part that we cover is social media, digital literacy. Because believe it or not, many people assume because our children grow up with technology, so they know everything about social media. That is not true. Most kids, they know how to use Instagram, how to use TikTok to consume. Very few of them are actually creators. They don't know how to use social media, how to use LinkedIn the way that we are using LinkedIn. So another part that we supplement at Classroom Without Walls is social media, digital literacy. There is so much uneducated fear when it comes to social media and technology from the schools, from the parents. And I work with the schools. They are just so afraid of technology. They completely ban social media, including LinkedIn. But the funny part is when I ask their students, everybody's on Instagram, everybody's on TikTok, but they don't teach them how to use that. That's why I think our children have so many problems because they don't have positive role models or coaches or mentors to teach them. This is how you should use social media to serve you, as opposed to allowing social media to use you to serve them. So kind of what we do at Classroom Without Walls is to flip that around. Yeah, so those are kind of the things we cover.
That's amazing. Well, I've enjoyed some of the videos of your sons teaching about Canva. So they've taught me a couple things on using Canva, which is so cool. And interestingly enough, I was actually a preschool teacher. One of my first jobs out of college was actually a preschool teacher at a Chinese fine arts preschool.
Oh.
And I remember using flashcards with 2-year-olds. If we want to talk about like memorization and like a really interesting model of education. And then I also was a teacher at another more standard preschool here in the States. So I can definitely see like everything you're talking about starts so young in terms of grooming and how we are shaping these young minds to really go up the funnel of traditional education. And one of my questions is, you were in academia for so long, you were a product of the traditional education system. So how did you sort of break free of that thinking and like have that level of courage and boldness, but also how were you able to overhaul your own thinking to really create this new methodology?
Oh, that's such a great question. And the short answer is very hard.
Yeah. Not overnight.
Definitely. And when I wanted to do something differently, and first off, I got bullied a lot. So think about it, right? There's this woman, like minority with like so many degrees, started talking about the problems of education. And almost all of my friends are college professors or K-12 teachers. They can't accept that. They are very defensive. Right. And I still remember there was Harvard education futurist from Harvard University, and he made a prediction: 50% of American colleges will go bankrupt in the next 10 years. So I shared that. I was like, wow, look, this education model is not working. And every time when I made a post like that, oh my God, my inbox is just like flooded with like hate, like, who are you? Why are you talking about this? Like, so that part is really hard, like being bullied. I never got bullied when I was a college professor. So that was really hard for me to accept and to work with that. That's why I think, entrepreneurship is a journey. It's more so a personal development journey. Like for me, learning the business skills and, run like online business, learning about ClickFunnels, building email lists, they're not hard. They're not the hardest, right? I can take some online classes. I work with a coach. But the hardest part is this internal transformation, like, dealing with bullies. And also like a big part is identity shift. Because for the longest time in my entire life, my only identity was a college professor. It's like a safety thing. And now all of a sudden I'm moving away from that identity, but I didn't know where I was going. Like, who am I becoming? I had no idea. So that is very, very scary. Like you had no idea. It's almost like giving birth to myself, but I don't even know, am I being reincarnated into an animal or into a human being, into a different universe? And that part is really, really scary. So that took me quite some time to understand, to move on. I think meditation definitely helped me a lot. Yeah, I went to quite a few meditation retreats. At the same time, I discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you both know him. And I read all of his books. I really learned how to design my life based on a vision of the future, as opposed to my memory of the past, really learning to disassociating myself from my past, but really every day work on my vision, work on myself, and to align myself with that future vision, which is based on my authentic self. So I did lots of inner work. I think that took me about 2 years to really finally discover, oh, wow, who I am, what I wanted to do in life, and be okay with the journey and be okay with the choice that I made, and learning to build that alignment between who I am and my vision for my future. So I think that is the biggest transformation that I saw in myself. And also I discovered the more I transform internally, the more I transform externally. It is an inside out journey, as opposed to many people think that it's an outside in, but it is definitely an inside out journey for myself.
Mm-hmm. We're huge believers in that. And I can speak from my personal experience that business ownership is absolutely an inside job, right? And I love that you covered that so beautifully, and especially this idea of identity, right? And how strongly ingrained that is in all of us. And if you want to shift that, like it's going to take real work to unwrite and rewrite in so many ways. And
also the learning part is also hard. So what I discovered from working with so many kids at my school is that the younger kids, I typically see transformation after 2 coaching sessions. But for the older children, not necessarily, because the damage is a lot deeper. So the younger you can start to unlearn and relearn, the easier it is. For me, when I decided to reinvent myself, work on my side hustles, I was already like mid-age, right? So it took me quite a few decades to get to that level. So to unlearn that, it definitely will take some time to unprocess that, undo the damage, unlearn everything, and relearn. And so in terms of business, my biggest challenge was learning how to speak in a way that people understand me, because I came from that academic background. Everything's like, I argue, like very like based on theories, like based on studies. Like when I first started writing content for social media, nobody had any idea what I was talking about. So I felt like I had to relearn a new language, which is the online social media language. So there are lots of examples like that to unlearn everything I learned from my graduate school and relearn something new. But this part is not as hard as the internal transformation. But it is also hard, but not as hard. Yeah.
So there's so many things that you speak to that we completely agree with. I mean, you talk about having a vision for your life, and like that's what we talk about it in the book is like you've got to start there, you know, and like where do you really want to go? Because it's hard to plot a real course if you don't know exactly where you want to go. And I think most of us are just kind of stumbling like from one thing to the next, kind of thing, oh, I'd like to make more money or whatever. And we don't really have a clear destination. So that's so powerful that you were able to do that at that midpoint, having already been successful in academia, because I think people do that more easily if they aren't creating the success that they want. But you could obviously feel there was a dissonance between the success you're having externally and what was your own internal truth, right? Which is really powerful. And then just talking about
sorry to interrupt you, Craig. I think that's such a great point. And that's why I love your book so much, because you are asking those really important questions that very very few people are actually asking, especially the younger generation. So I think the book that you both wrote is not only for entrepreneurs, but also can be very powerful for the younger generation. Like I heard so many stories from my students when asking, why did you want to choose this as a major? Very few students will actually tell me, Dr. I chose this because I wanted to do this. Many of them either because of their parents or because they saw Sex and the City, that PR person is doing something really good. I want to be that PR person, or like because of the ranking. And that is really common. They choose their life, they choose their career based on like certain school ranking or ranking of majors. I think that is the wrong approach. That's why so many people ended up, including myself, when I was being a college professor, I wasn't happy. And when I look around, like my friends, like I don't think anyone was genuinely happy, loving what they do. I actually met anyone who loved their job before I resigned. But now I have friends like you guys, entrepreneurs who love what they do. And I think this is like going within and asking yourself those bigger questions, seeing the future. So important, not only for the but working professionals, but also for the younger generation.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, I mean, we talk about it that if you want to get into self-development, entrepreneurship is like the best game in town. Like you'll come up against that right away for sure.
Yeah, I have definitely grown a lot, and I discovered a lot of stuff. I didn't even know how good I am, right? Until I tried. I was like, wow, I didn't know I love this so much. I didn't know that I could be like actually a pretty good, decent entrepreneur. And definitely I learned a lot about myself for sure. Yeah.
Well, and it's also really freeing, I think, when you think I'm XYZ, like you think you're this box, and then all of a sudden you step outside of that and you realize, oh, I can also do this. And like, we just discovered, like started using social media like 2 years ago, and we like, or 2.5 years ago, maybe like we weren't using that at all. And it's like, oh, we can also do that, right? Or we can also write a book, or we can also do investing. We don't just have to be a banker, a teacher, or an entrepreneur. And so powerful. Thank you for having the courage to do it for sure.
It's such a, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
It's such a powerful mindset shift. And that's why, my friend and I, we wrote this book, we co-wrote this book, Skip the Degree, Save the Tuition, is really to show other people alternatives in life where they can pursue this and still have a very fulfilling life, generating income, generating impact. College is no longer the only way for people to have a successful life. There are so many other alternative options. And it's definitely not either or. It's like a multiple choice. Yeah.
Well, and we'll absolutely put the book info in the show notes for people so they can access that. But to your point, I mean, for decades and decades, people thought go to college or bust, right? Like there's no other options. And now there's infinite options for people to be entrepreneurial or, run their own courses or do stuff on social media. So I think it's just really beautiful that you're able to create so much content and material for people to work off of, to really be able to go a little counterculture and actually still truly thrive. And in so many ways, be more of their authentic self than if they were try and jam themselves into academia. And that's just not the right path for so many people.
Totally. I mean, like that's the one thing in common that we hear from all those entrepreneurs, not to mention like how much money they're making, but they are all happier. I'm way happier because this is my authentic life. It takes no energy for me to be me, whereas my old self, every day I had to this mask, that mask, layers of masks, like in front of my authentic self. It is exhausting to maintain that face on a yearly basis, but now it takes me no energy to be me, and I love it. I have so much more energy saved that I can use that to run my business, and it's such a great feeling. Yeah,
wonderful. Well, I think we could talk about that topic and continue to go deeper there for hours. Obviously, you've written a book on it, and congratulations on the success. I know it's done very well on Amazon and will continue to do well. I think one thing that would be nice to pivot to a little bit is some tactical for people who say, okay, I'm with you. Like, I'm with you guys. Like, I have this job and I don't want to do this forever. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to control my destiny. I want to live out more of my life vision. What are some maybe tactical things that you could share with folks to start doing after they've got that vision starting to put together? Like, what comes to mind for you? And you know, I think we're big proponents of the side hustle because it doesn't have to be this huge leap into the unknown where you quit your job and you borrow everything from whatever you've got in your 401k. And now you're just like broke and you're borrowing money from your family and friends. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. You also don't have to do a passion, although that can be helpful and easier sometimes. But like, I guess what would your next steps be for folks after that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I actually didn't just resign from my position right away after I have been thinking about building my own thing. And I actually worked on this as a side hustle for quite a few years. And I only officially resigned from my associate professor position in the summer of 2019, so only recently. So I think it is so important that we actually test our ideas, right? And the worst case is that you spend so much time, you quit your job, you spend so much time and money building this course, whatever you are passionate about, only to discover that there's no market for it, right? What a waste of time. Right. So what I learned from my own journey is like actually testing my ideas. And to actually see some cash flow, and before you make that big decision, goodbye my full-time job, especially if you are a mom, if you are a dad, I just don't know how people can stay creative and innovative when they are struggling with putting food on the table. Like I just cannot do anything if my own children are struggling. So like I don't recommend that approach. So if you are, I think in your book, you actually talked about this and how to do both, right? Having a full-time job and also working on your side hustle. I think that is a much wiser choice and approach than some other gurus out there, just like massive action, just quit. And I think that is irresponsible. So for me, I tested my ideas and I saw cash flow. And the beauty of testing my ideas is also as I was taking action, the action I was taking was also giving me clarity on what my business model is going to be. I didn't, the curriculum, the design of my business didn't happen overnight. It is a result of repetitive small actions, testing my ideas, refining my ideas, and throw my ideas into the market to test again. If nobody's responding, if I'm not making money from this idea, like get rid of that ideas, refine on the ideas people are resonating with, are giving me money. So it is definitely a journey. So definitely start, testing your ideas, validating the idea, the surveys in the marketplace until you see some cash flow, and then have a plan before you quit your job. That's my first piece of advice, which I think is many people kind of overlooked.
Yeah, giving your chance to get some iterations in and actually get out in the field, but putting yourself in a position of strength, like you said, with still being able to put food on the table and really fund your business and fund the vision. I think that's a huge tip.
Totally. And then once you get some cash flow, that's good. And I also I think that again goes back to the vision that we're talking about before. So for me, because we also homeschool our children, and I don't want to serve hundreds of thousands of people, but I just want to serve a few students and they can pay me really well. And I can do what I do at the same time without driving myself crazy so that I have no time to spend with my family. I love how both of you are full-time parents, part-time entrepreneurs, and I'm not there yet, but that is my goal. So because of that, prioritizing my family, homeschooling my own children, so I designed my business. I'm selling a high-end product or service, and my programs are now cheap. And but I work with students on a one-on-one basis. So instead of selling like a 300 or 500 digital course that I have like thousands of students be with me, that's not the business model I want to create. And I don't think I will be happy with that. I will be so busy that I won't have time to spend with my own children. So I intentionally designed my business model as more so a high-end product. That's how I do my positioning. That's how I differentiate myself from all the other educational programs out there. I study them, I research them. I purchase some of their programs. So I do a number of things that those programs are now doing to help me stand out and to also kind of justify the money that I'm charging my students. And as a result of that, I'm very happy. Earlier this year, I just had a 6-figure launch. I'm very happy about that. And I'm doing what I love. And I have a small group of students. They make me very happy. I make them very happy. Their parents very happy. And I also have time with my own children. So that's another thing I love about entrepreneurship, which is give us the autonomy to design our life, to design our business. That makes sense to us, right? To my situation right now, as opposed to a cookie cutter approach. Everybody has to run their business this way. That's not how I do it. Yeah, I have a very lean operation, and I love that. And I use social media as I do inbound marketing. Everything is organic. I don't do any Facebook ads. And also because I'm selling a high-end program, it is very hard for me to rely on Facebook ads to kind of convert someone to join my program after they see a few ads. So like really knowing what you want to do in the end, kind of reverse engineer back and have a business plan. So that's kind of how I think, how I do my business. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congrats on figuring that out in a relatively short time, considering you were in academia for so long, right? Mm-hmm. So I think one thing that's helpful for people, and we probably could talk more about this, even some of our mistakes got cut out of our book. But what are maybe some follies, some things that you've had that maybe people could learn from, or any things that you've stumbled on that would be helpful for others?
Yeah, I definitely made lots of mistakes.
We all have. I mean, that's the only way to win in entrepreneurship is to fail.
Totally. Right? Totally. I think if you can, definitely invest in a coach earlier. Mm. And so for me, probably everyone had the same feeling. Oh, I'm just going to watch a free course here, a free course there, like a YouTube video there, a YouTube video there, and just like scattered information. And I feel like it can help you, but will take a much longer time. So another decision I made right after I designed, I invested in a very good coach. So the coach was able to help me to shortcut my learning curve. And so in the long run, she was able to help me save so much time and so much money so that I don't have to repeat the mistakes that she made when she started this journey. And I can just learn from someone who already have been on this journey. And no, she's like a coach, like a mentor, definitely helped me a lot. And I wish I started working with a coach earlier, and that could definitely have saved lots of money for me. Yeah. So if you can, so once you have some cash flow, definitely invest in a coach. And that, to me, that is such a great way to escalate your business and grow and save time and money in the long run. And also someone is holding you accountable. And especially for people who are still having full-time job. And I feel like for me, even though I'm a very driven person, having someone push me to do the things that I didn't want to do makes a huge difference. Like launching a master class, like, I can't do this. I don't want to do it. But like when you have a coach in front of you, you have to do this. And that's kind of how it pushes you a lot to actually make it happen. So so I definitely, that's one piece of advice I wanted to share with everyone. If you can, invest in a good coach early on. Don't wait. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're big proponents of that. And what we talk about the who, right? And I think sometimes people put that too far down and they're more focused on a lot of logistics and strategy. It's like, man, why don't you just get around people who are already successful. And I use the example of speaking Chinese a lot, but if you want to learn how to speak Chinese, just like hang out with people who speak it rather than Google it, right? Or search online. So yeah, that's wonderful. There's also a lot we could go in there because there are a lot of coaches out there. There's also mentors, there's also associations, and a lot of mentors you can capture for free. A lot of coaches you have to pay. And some are really good. And I think there's also a lot of watered down coaching happening out there of people who've never built anything, which we really struggle with. It's like, you want to be an entrepreneurial coach, but
oh my God, yes.
Yeah, but you've never built a business. Like, that's not cool, I guess, maybe is the way I would put it. But any just tips on like how to discern a coach or get a mentor? Because I think a coach can also be a mentor and vice versa. But any thoughts?
Definitely. I mean, like I have also invested in bad coaches. I took bad online classes, and there are so many fake gurus, fake experts out there. Totally. And yes, definitely. So I think for me, how I figured this out was actually launching my own podcast. So in 2017, I launched my very first live streaming show. Yep. And on the show, and that show focused on social media and marketing. And I was able to interview so many amazing digital marketers, entrepreneurs, business leaders, people like Seth Godin, Guy Kawasaki. And like talking to those people have really helps me a lot. And now in terms of learning, but actually have the ability to discern, right, is this a real person or like a real coach, or is this like a fake marketer? I mean, like after you talk to hundreds of people, you can pretty much hear like after 5 minutes, yep, this person just like fluff. You can tell this person has never done any business, has never made any money. So now I have that ability after doing so many interviews. So I have to say that just kind of launching my own podcast, talking to people, interviewing people, learning has really empowered me to discern good coaches from bad coaches, and also kind of creating my inner circle and working with mentors, like people like Mark Schaefer. I really love him. I read all of his books, almost like a friend, like a mentor. And it's such there are, even if you don't have a huge budget, you can easily start a podcast for free, or you can write blog articles as a way to share, to learn without investing thousands of dollars. And then that can help you build a network and build some expertise in terms of, reading people more accurately.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it's so important to get around those people, and they're the only people that can help you get through it, right? Because everyone else, if you're going to run a marathon and you ask me, I'll be like, don't run a marathon, like build a business and become an entrepreneur so you can be financially independent and then like have your life back and then run a marathon. But like people who've run it are going to tell you, you have to push through it, right? And so I think the worst thing people can do is try to be a successful entrepreneur and then never surround themselves with people who are. And so obviously you did a great job of that.
Yeah.
And just to follow up on that is like, I feel like many people, if you are on your own, you feel like being occupied with busy work, right? I need to create my logo. I need to fix my website, this and that. You can spend hours and hours doing those things and still not making any money. I didn't, right? Thank God I had a coach. So even when I was starting to generate good income, my website was like crap, right? I didn't really work on it. But like once you have the cash flow, I think that is what is more important. Once you have the cash flow, you can start to improve your logo, color, all those things. But I don't think that should be the first thing that many people are starting with. But many people start with that because it is almost like an excuse to not do the 20%, right? We all know the 20% is what gives us the 80% of the results. But most people focus on the teeny tiny things, not really working on the 20%. But when you are working with a good coach, with a good mentor, they can tell you, stop giving yourself excuses, start working on the 20%. Yeah, but I see that a lot, especially in new entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's kind of the fun, cutesy things like my business cards or my logo or my website. It like kind of puffs people's chest up like, oh, I'm a business owner now. But it's like, no, man, you have to actually go do some work. Do the hard stuff that you might not want to do. You might really not want to do, but that's what creates revenue and net profit and actually gives you credibility and real skills and results. So I think
definitely. Like for me, I know that to grow my business, I have to do more cold calling, like just messaging people, even doing like chatting with prospects on the phone or over Zoom, selling my program. That is extremely uncomfortable to me. For the longest time, I was avoiding that, because I'm like, but my coach really pushed me. And when you have a group of entrepreneurs who are all being challenged, who are working on the same thing, it definitely makes a difference, right? Everyone is having the same challenge. Everyone has to overcome the same self-limiting beliefs. And if they can do it, why not me? So having that environment, having a good coach makes a huge difference. Yeah, really push me to work on the 20%. Yeah.
Yeah, it normalizes the struggle, right? I mean, and I think that's extremely important. So,
well, thank you for being with us today. And congratulations on the book. Yes. Congratulations on the success of Classroom Without Walls. And most importantly, congratulations on having the courage, to like really go after it. I think that inspires us. And we're ready to fire our kids up and send them off to your boot camp someday. Hopefully we can afford it, but we've done okay. So hopefully we'll be all right. But no, really appreciate the work you've done. And one of our themes is to just stay focused on what actually matters most. And I think your story is really a testament to that, of being able to have that step back and evaluate. I'm having success in this arena, but is there a fulfillment gap that we talk about between what I'm doing and like, what's important to me. And so you've obviously been able to bridge that. So congrats.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And Dr. I, where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah. So people can go to my website. Now I do have a decent website, classroomwithoutwalls.ai. So on my website, you can check out my podcast. They can discover me on like different social media. So yeah, that's the best place, classroomwithoutwalls.ai.
Fantastic. And Dr. I's podcast is amazing. So, and she's not just created a listener base, she's created a movement. So it's so fun to touch base with people who are big followers of your work as we are. And you've really created such great content and a neat path for people to follow that is, I wouldn't even say counterculture, but just fresh and more current than old methodologies. So thank you for being here with us. Everybody enjoy the grind and take some good notes from this conversation. Over and out. Take care. Thanks for listening to today's episode.
Please subscribe and leave a review, and be sure to visit tandemconsulting.co/talks.